For years, you were told Lindsey Buckingham was fired from Fleetwood Mac because of a simple scheduling conflict. But that is a lie. The truth is, the world's most successful band ended over a single Smirk, a $14 million lawsuit, and a secret ultimatum that Stevie Nicks hoped would never go public. On January 26, 2018, the 5 members of the classic Fleetwood Mac lineup stood on stage at Radio City Music Hall in New York. They were being honored as the MusiCares Person of the Year, a prestigious tribute celebrating their decades of musical genius and philanthropic work. To the crowd of industry elites, they looked like rock royalty, finally at peace after decades of public breakups, betrayals, and bitter disputes. But just beneath the surface of the flashing cameras and polite applause, a devastating storm was brewing. Within 48 hours, this legendary partnership would be shattered forever, ending not with a mutual agreement, but with a shocking betrayal. To understand how the world's most enduring soap opera imploded in a single night, we have to look at the exact timeline of that MusiCares gala. The tension began before the band even walked out to accept their award. As they prepared to make their grand entrance, the venue began playing the intro music over the speakers. The song chosen was Rihanna, Stevie Nicks' iconic, haunting masterpiece. While the audience roared in approval, Lindsey Buckingham was privately furious. He felt that using Stevie's signature track as the band's introduction was a selfish production choice that undermined the collective impact of the entire group. He made his complaints known backstage, causing an immediate undercurrent of hostility. When the band finally took the stage, the atmosphere was incredibly tense. Stevie Nicks walked up to the microphone to deliver her acceptance speech. True to her legendary mystical persona, Stevie began speaking in a long, winding, and theatrical manner, expressing her gratitude to the fans and the industry. Lindsey stood just a few feet behind her, holding his guitar. As Stevie continued to speak, Lindsey did something that would change the course of music history. He smirked. To Lindsey, it was a harmless, familiar reaction, a running inside joke among the band members that Stevie's speeches tended to drag on. In fact, just behind her, Christine McVie and Mick Fleetwood were playfully pretending to waltz to mock the length of her speech. But to Stevie, looking out at a room filled with their peers, Lindsey's smirk was a public humiliation. It was a condescending, dismissive gesture that cut through decades of shared history. But the disrespect didn't stop there. According to Stevie, Lindsey's hostile attitude poisoned the entire evening. He was allegedly dismissive and unkind to everyone around him, including pop superstar Harry Styles, who had lovingly presented the band with their award. As Stevie watched Lindsey mock her and treat their guests with disdain, something snapped inside her. She later recalled looking at him on stage and hearing the voices of her late parents. She heard her mother's voice asking, "Are you really going to spend the next 15 years of your life with this man?" Then she heard her pragmatic father's voice advising her, "It is time for you guys to get a divorce." In that exact moment, surrounded by the applause of the music industry, Stevie made a silent, definitive vow. She was done. On January 28th, date night, just 2 days after the gala, Lindsey Buckingham was at his home in Los Angeles. He was resting, fully expecting to begin rehearsals in a few months for Fleetwood Mac's massive, upcoming 60-show North American tour. This tour was a monumental financial undertaking, projected to gross hundreds of millions of dollars, with each band member set to personally pocket between $12 and $14 million. Then his phone rang. On the other end of the line was Irving Azoff, the band's longtime high-powered manager. But Azoff wasn't calling to discuss set lists or travel arrangements. He was screaming. Azoff yelled down the phone saying, "You've really done it this time." Lindsey, completely caught off guard, asked what he was talking about. Azoff delivered a cold, devastating blow. "Stevie never wants to be on stage with you again." Lindsey was stunned. He initially assumed Stevie was quitting the band to pursue her solo career. But when he called Azoff back to clarify, the manager revealed the terrifying truth. Stevie hadn't quit. She had handed the band a brutal, non-negotiable ultimatum. Either Lindsey goes or I go. This was the ultimate power move. a calculation that Stevie Nicks knew she would win. Faced with a choice between their iconic frontwoman or their lead guitarist and producer, the rest of the band made their decision in absolute silence. Not a single member of Fleetwood Mac called Lindsey to tell him he was out. After 43 years of writing hits, touring the world, and saving the band from the brink of collapse, Lindsey Buckingham was excommunicated via a phone call from a manager. Desperate to salvage the relationships he had spent his life building, Lindsey immediately drafted an email to drummer Mick Fleetwood. He begged the band to rise above their personal differences one last time, writing that after 43 years and the finish line clearly in sight, it was hard to escape the conclusion that for the five of us to splinter apart now would be the wrong thing. He received no reply. Mick Fleetwood, Christine McVie, and John McVie remained completely silent. To cover up the massive internal civil war, Fleetwood Mac's public relations machine went into overdrive. In April 2018, the band officially announced that Lindsey Buckingham had departed the group due to scheduling conflicts. They claimed that Lindsey wanted to delay the upcoming tour to promote his solo album, while the rest of the band was eager to get on the road. It was a neat, sanitized narrative designed to protect ticket sales and keep the public focused on the music. But this official statement was an absolute lie. In October 2018, Lindsey decided he would no longer protect the band's carefully crafted secrets. He filed a blockbuster lawsuit in the Los Angeles County Superior Court, naming Stevie Nicks, Mick Fleetwood, Christine McVie, and John McVie as defendants. He sued them for breach of fiduciary duty, breach of oral contract, and intentional interference with prospective economic advantage. The lawsuit stripped away the polite PR facade and exposed the staggering financial greed at play. According to the court documents, the band had already signed a massive contract with concert giant Live Nation for a 60-show tour. Because Fleetwood Mac operated legally as a business partnership, each member owed a fiduciary duty of loyalty to one another. By freezing Lindsey out of the tour without a formal vote or a legitimate legal reason, they had unlawfully deprived him of his $12 to $14 million share of the tour's profits. The legal filings also thoroughly debunked the scheduling conflict lie. Lindsey revealed that while he had initially requested to start the tour in November to accommodate his solo work, he had ultimately agreed to put his entire solo career on hold to tour with the band starting in August. He had fully committed to the 60-show schedule. He was fired not because he wouldn't tour, but because Stevie Nicks refused to share the stage with him, and the rest of the band was too afraid of losing their own multi-million-dollar paydays to stand up to her. Rather than allow the lawsuit to go to trial, where decades of deeply buried band secrets, financial documents, and personal text messages would be made public, Fleetwood Mac capitulated. In December 2018, Lindsey settled the lawsuit for an undisclosed multi-million-dollar sum. While he publicly stated he was happy enough with the settlement, the emotional scars of the betrayal ran deep. The true tragedy of the situation was laid bare just a few weeks after the settlement. Lindsey received a secret, heartbreaking email from Christine McVie, with whom he had just recorded a successful duet album in 2017. Christine wrote, "Dearest Lindsey, just know that I had nothing to do with any of this. Know that I miss you so much." She went on to add, "I believe deep in Stevie's heart that she would like you to come home." This email confirmed that the firing was not a democratic decision, but a dictatorship run by Stevie Nicks, who held absolute leverage over the band's financial future. To replace Lindsey on the tour, the band hired Neil Finn of Crowded House and Mike Campbell, the former lead guitarist for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. While the tour went on, the magic was undeniably gone. Audiences were watching hired guns try to replicate Lindsey's intricate, self-taught fingerpicking style on songs he wrote, while the emotional core of the band lay in ruins. Years later, Stevie Nicks finally responded to Lindsey's account of his firing, calling his version of events revisionist and factually inaccurate. In a fiery statement to Rolling Stone, she claimed she never demanded he be fired, stating, "To be exceedingly clear, I did not have him fired. I did not ask for him to be fired. I did not demand he be fired. Frankly, I fired myself." I proactively removed myself from the band in a situation I considered to be toxic. But whether she officially fired him or simply told the band she would quit if he stayed, the end result was exactly the same. The classic era of Fleetwood Mac was dead. They would never record another album together, and they would never share a stage again. Following the tragic passing of Christine McVie in 2022, the remaining members confirmed that Fleetwood Mac is permanently finished. The final chapter of rock's greatest soap opera wasn't written on a triumphant stage under stadium lights, but in a cold, silent Los Angeles courtroom. It is a haunting reminder of how a historic 43-year legacy, built on some of the greatest music ever created, was destroyed in an instant, all because of a smirk, a hostile backstage encounter, and a $14 million lie that the world was never supposed to believe.